I'm George Friday. I live and work in North Carolina. I have been doing social justice and peace and justice work since my teens, and I'm celebrating being 50, which is kind of a bummer in this context. So I thought about 51. Well, military-industrial complex of myself. I'm 50 in the same year, but I was born on Hiroshima Day. Hello. At any rate, though, I am the National Coordinator for the Independent Progressive Politics Network. I am the field organizer for the Bill of Rights Defense Committee. I'm proud to be co-chair of the North Carolina Green Party and chair of the Women's and Black Caucus. And I'm going to start by talking a bit about, I know it says on the program I'm going to talk about our corporation's people, and that is relevant. The Independent Progressive Politics Network was one of the founding members of Move to Amend. And we met about 9 months before the Citizens United case, because many of us have been doing this work for very long, and we knew it was coming, and thought that that was a way of trying to make sure we're building the power to effectively challenge corporations. And that's really what I want to talk about, is building power. So I'm not going to strictly answer the questions of our corporation's people. I think you know the answer to that. But I am going to talk about, and there's a friend of mine who says sometimes I talk in bumper stickers. So I will say some bumper sticker things and then talk to you about my recommendations and then pass it on to these gentlemen here to go deeper into some of the things that I share. The bumper sticker that I know y'all agree with is that war is not a jobs program. So that's the big bumper sticker. If I had a bumper sticker for the day, that would be it. And you know what goes on with the discretionary spending. You've seen that, folks have talked about it in the budget. But what people haven't seen, and what I really feel like our movement has missed, is doing the hard work of movement building. Now, I'm going to say to you today the same stuff I said when I was 15 years old. And there's some frustration I'm sharing it with, because as someone who grew up in poverty and dealing with the conditions of a militarized culture, and if it wasn't a militarized culture in 1961, it certainly is now. So, as a teenager saying we need to build the power for change and not necessarily being heard, or my first job being with St. Freeze, which is now Peace Action, and people, I still love and respect everyone there and do great work with those folks, but that was my first job out of college, and I heard things like, we don't have the time to figure out and translate documents into Spanish. We can't really focus on building communications and relationships with low-income people and people of color, because it takes too much time, and things are urgent, critical. We got to stop the MX missile this month. Like we're not in a marathon instead of a sprint. And what often is so frustrating too is, and why I'm thrilled, I'm sorry that Robert's not here, because I'm down with him in terms of what is the benefit of the Tea Party. Part of that is, when you grow up next door to people who have family in the Klan, you find ways to find your common space and your common issues and focus on those. And over time, guess what? Those other things disintegrate. If you build relationships with authenticity and integrity with people that aren't like you, I don't care if they're uncles in the Klan. Over time, we won't be, or they won't have those values. But we tend to dismiss folks we don't want to take the time to build a relationship with. How are we going to have an effective power base? Look at this room, come on. How are we going to have an effective power base if we're not willing to do the hard work of... Hello, my name is George Friday. You want to talk about what the priorities in your neighborhood? Don't you think if you went to a housing project with that game Lisa Savage just talked about, you would have some people fired up at the next city council meeting? We're talking about instant wins, but long-term work. Now, the long-term work that folks like y'all in the room aren't necessarily down for is, oh, well, I've got to deal with privilege and oppression. I've got to deal with the fact that even though I don't want to be part of this horrible, exploitive culture, I still benefit from having white skin, or being male, or being straight, or being Christian. And there's a way that that privilege, which is invisible, so you have no idea of both its manifestations in your conscious and unconscious self, and how it limits your ability to connect with and build power with people who are different idea. And so you're out there planning actions and doing marches and writing op-eds and kicking ass, but not really with a effective consciousness of how you build power. So that's my first challenge. I'll do the hard work. First, remember that it is a marathon, not a sprint. Plan for 12 to 20 years of hard work with incremental, fantastic wins, like the one Lisa talked about in terms of getting the vet hospital to stay open, or a small one, like you're able to get young people involved in your organization and they stay. Right? Not that they come to one meeting, because often, I know this from my own experience, you'll have brilliant young people show up, but our sort of, attitude, because we do have ageism as much as racism, sexism, all the other ones, that they don't come back again because they don't feel welcome, they don't feel heard, they don't feel valued.
That's right.
And you have to have the skills to do that. You can't just say, oh, but I respect people of color, I respect folks who are undocumented, I want them to be part of this. We make space, we want diversity. It's not just your intention that works. You got to build the skills. It is a skill set.
Yeah.
So do the work, and I'll be around if you want to find out how to get started. And there's lots of resources for doing community building or dismantling oppression work. It's central to the Move to Amend coalition. We absolutely include centralizing race, and there's a reason that we use race, even though we know all oppression, there's no hierarchy of oppression, and all oppression must be dealt with. We use race and centralizing race in doing the Move to Amend work to challenge and take down corporate personhood, because we know we have to build power, and we can't build that power if we don't know what's in our way. The other thing, though, that I want to say before I pass it off to the gentleman here, is for us to really deal with the root cause. And that's when I mentioned earlier why I have respect for the Tea Party, and Swanson and I will be hanging out with some Tea Party folks next weekend. It's because they are going for the root cause. When next weekend we'll be talking about a constitutional convention to change the Constitution. That's pretty root, right? And often what we're doing is we're doing a protest because of the latest atrocity that's happened, and we get lots of energy going on, and we'll get a march, and we'll get people converged in one place, which is fantastic and energizing, and then we go home. We let them catch their breath. What? Why are we letting them catch their breath? Mostly because we don't have enough numbers. If we build the kind of power we need, we'll have enough numbers always. A continual assault on power. A continual assault in ways they can't see, anticipate, or prepare for, or recover from. A couple of examples of that continual assault in ways they can't anticipate that come out of building relationships with people that are different. I love fantasizing about this. I am twisted, of course, because I've been doing this work since I was a teen, and I believe that we can win. So that was a little bit weirdness there. But so these are the things I fantasize about. So one is, I know lots of raging grannies, fantastic, wonderful people. And imagine if in a community, in a town, there's been really effective work with young people and people of color, and undocumented people, and South Asian and Muslim people who are dealing with lots of bullying problems. Now let's imagine that young people who are all recruitment age, along with raging grannies, do a sit-down at a military recruitment center. Now, can you imagine them trying to arrest and rough up a bunch of raging grannies, right? You got like a bunch of old white ladies, some young Latino, African American, mostly men. Oh, the visual. Every time I think about it, it's like, to me, that's fantastic. The other one that I think is great is think about folks who have financial privilege. And some of us in the world, and I was going to ask somebody to buy me a bottle of wine tonight as a gift for my finding us a table. And then make that request because it felt like a bit too much an extra, sort of above and beyond. And as a low-income person, I can't buy myself a bottle of wine today, but I certainly want it. So I'm putting that out there. But some of us don't have things like credit cards or savings accounts or trust funds, but there are people that do, and they're on our side. We have to build community with them too. Here's my fantasy with them. You've worked with folks in cities all across the country who are organized homeless people. around sexual assault, domestic violence, who might be in shelter, who might not have a place to live. So imagine, in droves, at some fancy hotels in New York and Boston and blah, blah, you got a bunch of wealthy folks checking in homeless folks. Oh, you know, that's the stuff that shakes them up. That's the stuff they can't anticipate. What's they gonna do? Lisa Savage uses her credit card to check me into a hotel. But not just me, but 100 people at the same time. Oh, I love it. Because it challenges status quo, it takes them off their game, it's a continual assault that they can't anticipate or recover from. So that's the kind of recommendations that I have for you, is to take the long view, prepare for a 12 to 20-year marathon. That also means relax a little bit, give yourself and each other a break, because it's the rest of our life. Come on, you know, have some fun. Know you're going to screw up. Don't feel, trepidatious about, am I racist, or did I do a classist thing, or whatever. Get over it. Yes, you did. You are. You did. So prepare for that long-term, do your skill-building work, focus on your roots, and look for the opportunities for the short-term